Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for our daily devos as we continue on in the harmony of the Gospels. Today we're in Matthew chapter 10, verses 1 through 4, Mark 3, 13 through 19, and Luke 6, 12 through 16. In these verses, this is where Jesus names the 12. He calls the 12 men who are going to be with him in ministry, learning from him, leading up to his crucifixion and burial and resurrection. So these 12 men are specifically called by Christ to become his apostles. He pulls them from among a group of disciples. Now, disciple means learner, and we often refer to them as the 12 disciples, but he refers to them as the 12 apostles. This is specifically noted in Luke. Now, the thing these three Gospels have in common is that they all list these men in the same order. They list them in groups of four, three groups of four. So we have the first group is always the same four names, second always the same four names, and third is always the same four names. And in Matthew, he points out first Peter, but he doesn't mean first as in best. He means first as in first among equals. That's what is indicated in the language and in that particular gospel. In Mark, he focuses very much on the fact that this is for them to be close to Jesus, to learn from him. And in Luke, he focuses on the prayer that Jesus prayed before he chose them. He spent all night in prayer. Now, I have on occasion spent some relatively sleepless nights surrendering the troubling things that were on my mind or on my heart to God and praying over those things. But this was an all-night prayer. This was different from the Jesus rose early in the morning while it was still dark kind of personal time. This was a very dedicated prayer for these 12 men. This is what makes them special, is that Jesus prayed and then he chose them after he prayed. The other parts that factor in are that they are just like you and me. They were ordinary men. You have four of them that were fishermen, one that was a hated tax collector, one that was a member of a very violent political party, and the other six we know very little about other than that Judas betrays Jesus in the end. And so we really don't know much about them. They're these men, but Jesus prays over them to say, these are the men that God directed him to say, use these men to establish the church, equip them, take the time to be with them. Now, the disciples that they were with, that they were among, disciple means learner. So they were among a group of learners, but he calls them out to learn very specifically how to do ministry, how to be equipped by him in order to do the work in front of them. Apostle means to send out with delegated authority. So he chose these 12 men to delegate his authority to, knowing that this was going to be the establishment of the church after his resurrection and ascension into heaven. So these men needed to spend very, very intense time with Jesus. So Jesus spent very focused and intense time with God. And then he chose these 12 men to spend very focused and intense time with him so that they could learn and be equipped. And then he could delegate his authority to them to go and start the church that we are today. There are three things that are important here. One, Christ prayed. He prayed for these people. This is what we are to do. He set this model. Pray before you act. Pray before you choose. Then he chose these men. The second thing that he did was he taught them. And he said, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to equip you, and then I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you out to do this work. The third thing is there really wasn't anything particularly special about these men other than they were chosen by Christ. Now that's true of you and I. Now in Matthew 28, verses 19 and 20, we talk about the Great Commission where he says, he tells the disciples, go baptize and teach. He tells them to go and make disciples of all the nations. And that continues on. So he taught them and then he sent them. And then he commissions them to say, hey, I want you to go and baptize and teach. Repeat this cycle, repeat this cycle. But in John 17, he says a prayer over his disciples that talks about how God gave them to him and he equipped them. He gave them the heart of God and he prays over them. He prays protection over them. And then right after that, he prays for all believers. That includes you and me. And he wants us to be one. And he wants us to understand that we are in him and he is in us and that he was sent by the Father. So what he's saying here is He chose these 12 men through prayer. He chose them to be close to him, and he chose them to carry on the message. And that is what they did. They started the church. They did this important work, but they showed us that you don't have to be particularly educated or equipped. These were not teachers of the law that Christ chose. These were 12 men that just needed to be close to him so that they could learn and then they could go and share. And people, that is what we're called to today. Pray, stay close to Christ, and then be able to go and share that. Go and teach. Go and teach. And that is our commission. That remains our commission to this day. It was their commission. You don't have to be spectacularly educated. You just have to know Christ. And you have to believe that he is who he said he was. He is who he says he is. And he continues to do what he said he would do, which is how he ends his prayer in John 17. I highly encourage you to read that chapter. It is such a fantastic indication of God's heart and Christ's heart towards us. So take this with you. Know that you are called by Christ. You are chosen to learn from him and to share his love with others. Thank you, church, for joining us. I pray you have a fantastic day and that you join us again tomorrow.